Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Whitetail How-Tos, where we provide a step-by-step tutorial for one important deer hunting task.
I'm going to talk about something today that doesn't really get a lot of love when it comes to archery accessories, and that's sight pins. You might be thinking, well, they're pretty simple. They're on my sight. I put them on the deer as long as I shoot, it's over. But there's a lot more to it than that. I just want to go through 4 different considerations just for sight pins. So I'm not talking about second and third axis adjustment or movers or any of these other things that you might factor into your sight choice. Just talking about pins. The first thing is the most obvious, it's the number of pins. Some people can handle choosing the right pin in the moment of truth very easily. They stay pretty cool, calm and collected when that buck walks in and they go, he's at 32 yards, so I use my second pin, hold a little high. Some people aren't very good at that. If you don't have a lot of experience, it's often a good idea to declutter your sight window, go down from maybe 5 pins to 3, or 1 pin sight can be a game changer for people who are dealing with buck fever, who aren't real experienced at actually shooting at deer in the woods. The second thing is the configuration of your pins, horizontal versus vertical. You'll see on the market, there's sight offerings with various configurations. The most common is just like this, where you have a rack of pins that comes in from the side. Essentially about half of your sight window is covered up in pins. But what you see happen with some bow hunters, especially newer bow hunters, when a deer walks in, there's a lot of left-right shooting. And so you'll have somebody who's like notorious for hitting deer in the guts or hitting deer in the shoulder. When you have half of your sight window covered in sight pins, you tend to just want to cheat and look around it a little bit to see more of the deer. That causes you these right and left hits. You might want to look at some of the vertical sight pin options, because then you've got a better sight window on both sides. Now, if you don't have a problem with that, you don't need to worry about it, but it is something to consider. You also want to consider pin size. There are all kinds of sight options out there that go from a traditional like 0.019 inch pins that are all the same size. You'll see 0.029, they're bigger than these, or there's even 0.010, they're really, really small. But most whitetail hunters don't do very well on super small pins. But a lot of people think, I don't have the best eyes anymore, so I want the biggest pins possible. Sometimes they're a little bit too big for people, and they actually don't help you aim finely. And so the best thing to do with this, if you have some buddies who will let you shoot with their bow a little bit, just see how you like that sight, or go into a pro shop, fling some arrows with some sights with different size pins on, you really realize where your sweet spot is. So I know just through a lot of shooting that personally the 19s are my best bet, but that's all gonna depend on your vision, your aiming style, how comfortable you are. And the fourth thing is just the color of your pins. And you might think that this just has something to do with personal preference, but there's a little bit more to it than that. If you look at most sites, they lean pretty heavy toward green, then you'll see yellow and you'll see red. Red is the first color to disappear in low light. If you hunt pressure deer where you're really counting on that first 15, 20 minutes of shooting light or the last 15, 20 minutes of shooting light, which is real common in the whitetail world, red pins are harder to see. Again, not a big deal when you're sitting on the range and it's high light. When the real world shots happen with whitetails, you don't want a sight pin that you can't see very well. Because what happens is that buck walks in and you're gonna take that shot. You might introduce this moment of panic because you can't see your pin very well. I would rather have a rack of all green pins. When you're thinking about maybe getting a new sight, you're looking at accessories, you got that whole rack in the pro shop, or you're online, you're scrolling through sites, really consider the number of pins, the orientation of pins, the color of your pins, and the size of your pins. If you cater this to your personal preference, that will really help you actually shoot better in the woods. This is gonna help you fill more tags.
If you want more whitetail hunting advice, please listen to the Wired to Hunt podcast and the Wired to Hunt Foundation's podcast, and we'll give you everything you needed to hear about deer.